Music is.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this special Supply Chain Digital Days presentation. Today, we're going to talk about a different kind of risk, one that is not linked to the coronavirus, but to the imminent Brexit. And to talk about that today, I'm welcoming members from ALS Customs Services and Delta Douane, and I'll have Fabrice Raimond, who is the director of Delta Douane, introduce the company and our speakers today. Fabrice?
Good morning. Thanks to be there with us today. I'm Fabrice Raimond, Managing Director of Delta Douane in France, and also co-founder of Delta Douane. Today, we will try to help you to understand and give keys for the big change that happened at the end of the year in our relationships with UK. Delta Douane is a French branch of ALS Customs Services, integrated pan-European custom broker, present in 20 countries with more than 500 different. We are specialized in customs and focus on 3 products, which are at first brokerage, customs operation, import and export. Soraya, can you please go to the slide ahead? Thank you. So brokerage, customs operation, import and export, fiscal representation, all kinds of services in customs. Consultancy, which include also in France a layer, and the customs control tower, which will centralize and manage all your customs operation and a single point of contact. Here are with me Mr. Richard Revin, which is Managing Director of Benelux and UK, with his Brexit team, with Soraya Hashemi, leader project for Brexit, and Richard Catt, who is Director for UK. Soraya, please.
Hello, good morning. This is Soraya Hashemi from ALS Customs Services. And today I'm so happy to join this webinar today in order to share our knowledge with regards to Brexit with you. Definitely this would be a really, really hot topic, not only this year, since a few years ago up to now, but now we are facing Brexit within a few months. And today we would like to go deep to Brexit topic and the impact of Brexit into your businesses. I mean, UK company and especially EU companies and the companies which are established in France. As a UK company, we heard a lot about the European Customs Union. European Customs Union as a single market. The European Customs Union established in 1968 with aim to help European companies to trade easier, with having a harmonized customs system and harmonized customs tariffs. How does it work? All the EU member states, all the EU member state authorities work together. They work as such that there are only one customs authority. They have one customs rules. They apply only one customs tariff, and there is no tariff between the EU member states. With regard to the third country, meaning the country out of the European Customs Union, they will apply customs tariff, meaning upon arrival, upon import and export of each goods into the EU and outside the EU, you need to make a customs formalities, and also you need to pay import duties and taxes. We have heard a lot about the British exit, meaning Brexit. As of next year, meaning as of 1st of January 2021, the UK will become a third country against the 27 EU member states, which means that all the UK companies would make themselves prepare for all the changes. The main change with regard to customs is customs formalities and customs verification. They should make customs declaration upon imports and arrival into the EU. And these rules will be actually applicable upon exit of the European goods, Union goods from the EU to the UK as a third country. This is just only a general information about what we are facing as of 1st January 2021. But until then, what we should expect actually. Here we made a template, actually a timeline, which I would like to discuss it shortly with you together with my colleague Richard. We have already passed 1st of July, and the UK government mentioned that several times that they are not seeking for any extension, meaning they are expecting to end the transitional period as of at the end of this year. So as of now, I mean, at the middle of July up to October, they expect to reach de facto a type of free trade agreement. And as of October to December, they need to have time to submit these agreements and and finalize all the negotiation. But imagine that they do not or they cannot achieve these agreements. What we can expect? This is a big question, but the big consequence is no deal scenarios. So all companies need to be prepared for everything that we can expect as of next year. But maybe Richard can give you more explanation about the impact of no deal scenario or having an FTA in place.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. I think the crucial timing with respect to this overview is the 1st of October. If there's not an agreement with respect to a free trade deal, then we'll be facing a no deal as of the 1st of January. And if there's a no deal, this will mean that tariffs will be applicable and the UK will be fully seen as a third country for the EU, and vice versa, the EU will be a third country for the UK. No preferences will be applicable with respect to duties, and this will, of course, impact the cost of goods. If we look at the next slide, regardless of an FTA or not, what do we know for sure that is going to be impacted because of Brexit? So, as Soraya kindly mentioned, one of the biggest changes is with respect to customs formalities. If you export goods to the UK, regardless of the free trade agreement or not, customs formalities will be applicable. Same on the UK side, you will have to have import formalities done, and vice versa. When it comes to submitting customs entries, the whole IT infrastructure has to be in place, not only on the side of the government, but also on the side of the companies and the customs brokers. To be able to obtain certain simplified procedures, it's in the best case for your company to be AEO authorized. AEO means authorized economic operators. This is a proved authorization that you can obtain if you are fully compliant. If you have this authorization, you can obtain easier certain simplified procedures that will guarantee smoother imports and exports on both sides of the EU and the UK. What is going to also be crucial, if there's a free trade agreement, the proof of origin. It can be non-preferential and it can be also preferential. Anti-dumping duties could also impact your business significantly. When it comes to the flows, movement of goods, you can be faced with customs verifications, which can mean that your just-in-time movements will have to be foreseeing additional transit times. The Union Customs Code is a code that the EU, the legal code that the EU follows. The UK will not be following this anymore as of the 1st of January. Depending on what is agreed, certain export controls can be in place. You might need to have an export license or even an import license. You might be facing challenges with dual use goods, where you have to be able to prove that these are for military or for civilian use. The biggest challenge on the continent will always be the VAT. This is due to the fact that there are 27 member states that follow the EU VAT directive, but each have their own legal framework that you have to follow. Another point that the UK might change is the market regulations with respect to nutrition, food, live animals that might not be anymore in line with the legal framework of the EU. And then a big one when it comes to transport and who is actually going to be the exporter or the importer is determining which Incoterms are best for your business. This can be from an ex-works all the way to the DDP. Choosing this Incoterm might impact certain responsibilities, liabilities, and costs. Together, there's going to be a different foreign trade policy on the EU side and on the UK side.
So why don't we talk about the UK side first? Richard, you want to handle that?
We for sure can handle it. On the next slide, we made an overview of the most differences that will happen. So we can see clearly that there are going to be customs controls on the two sides of the borders. We see there's going to be export formalities to be submitted on the continent, on the European side, but also on the UK side. Same for import. On top of that, you might be facing import duties and import VAT that you have to pay unless that you can work with deferred or postponed VAT payments. If you are going to import your goods in another member state, for example, you are a French company and your goods will enter the EU via the Netherlands, you might have to be looking at fiscal representation if you are not registered for VAT in the Netherlands. On the UK side, you might be also seeking a tax agent or a tax representative based on the fact if you will be selling BDP to UK consumers or to UK customers. In between, and this is where the interesting stuff comes to ensure that you can have a fluent transit time, you might be looking at an NCTS. The UK has decided to remain in the CT convention, which will mean that they will be able to accept and discharge transits at the border in the UK, but also inland. If you are not making your own or submitting your own customs entries, you will have to find a customs broker, a customs representative to do this work for you. For this, you need to appoint them and give them the empowerment to act directly or indirectly for you. The crucial part is in preparation for your business is to identify what the customs commodity codes are that you are using. If you are not familiar with the tariff codes due to the fact that you are not exporting specifically or importing specifically at this moment, pre the 1st of January, you will need to classify all your goods accordingly, assess which duty rates in a non-free trade agreement you might be facing, and calculate this in your business proposal on the commercial side towards your customers. Everybody that is already making customs formalities and in contact with customs as an importer or an exporter will already have an EU EORI number. If not, you will need to apply for this fast. The time is ticking. We only have still a few months to get this prepared. If you are looking at the DDP setup, the EU EORI number will not be sufficient. You will also need to have a UK EORI number as an UK VAT number. As mentioned, this EORI number in the UK as a French exporter or an EU exporter will be determined by the Incoterm. And in that case, it will only be specifically applicable for a UK EORI number application if you are selling DDP. Also important, says which customs offices will be used to do the customs formalities. Is this going to be at the border? Is this going to be inland EU for export? Is this going to be at the border in the UK? For example, in Dover, Folkestone, Immingham, or wherever? Or will this be inland? If it is inland, you will want to move the goods under a transit procedure to that location. If for certain goods licenses are applicable, this has to be checked based on the customs commodity code, and you have to implement this in your procedures before you ship the goods to apply for an export or an import license. Crucial when you make customs formalities is that you have a correct and complete invoice and packing list where the customs broker or your customs department can make the customs formalities on. So this is crucial information.
And speaking of that, are there, as far as we know, are there going to be different formalities for different types of products? I'm assuming not everything is going to be handled the same way, like maybe hazardous material, electronics, fresh products. How many different scenarios are we looking at?
We are looking at multiple different scenarios depending on the commodity code. You might have to have inspections done by other governmental bodies. For example, if it will be food or animal products, these might have to be inspected by a different governmental body than customs. Customs will be acting as the stop person, and they will be informing you to submit an entry or additional information to another governmental body. When we look specific, sorry.
No, I was just thinking in terms of timeline. When do we expect to have that information? When do we expect to know exactly what's coming up?
When it comes specifically to the EU, we are very familiar with what happens on the EU side when you import or export goods from a third country. When we look at the UK side, we know for sure that certain easements will be possible as of the 1st of January until the 1st of July. They differentiate between two types of goods, the so-called controlled goods and the non-controlled goods. Controlled goods are, for example, excise goods, live animals, and plants where specific additional checks will have to be done. These goods will not be able to profit of the easement that the government in the UK has already stated. When it comes to non-controlled goods, we are looking at all types of standard goods. These can be close to electronics, which doesn't mean that they do not need to fulfill certain criteria, but they will not have additional checks as of the 1st of January, thanks to the easement that the UK government has granted.
So two different timelines.
Yeah.
Correct.
I could just say on there, a lot of this detail is apparently going to be made much clearer as of the 13th of July when the border operating model is issued by UK Customs. And all departments, that is, including DEFRA and all the departments.
Okay.
When it comes specifically to the procedures that we know that are going to be used in the UK on the import side, there is the full frontier declaration where you can declare the goods at the border. You even can pre-lodge them, and upon arrival, you have to change the status to arrived. Or you can profit if you are AEO or you meet AEO criteria by having a CFSP authorization to simplify the process. Here you will not work with a full frontier declaration, but you will work with a simplified frontier declaration. This will be a smaller data set that you have to provide to the customs authorities. And within the next month, you will have to submit a supplementary declaration. Both of these procedures will trigger, if applicable, import duties and import VAT. The UK government has stated that import VAT will be able to be postponed upon the start of the 1st of January. This means that you will have you will be able to seize a profit with respect to cash flow. meaning that the 20% in the example of standard VAT will not be due payable immediately upon import, but it will be pushed to your VAT files.
Okay.
When it comes specifically to the easement, and this is an easement that the UK government has granted, is without even applying for an AEO authorization or having CFSP, you will be able to use for 6 months the advantage that somebody has of the CSFP called EIDR, which means entry into the declarant's records. The goods will be able to enter the UK as long as they're non-controlled goods based on the UK EORI number. So it will be a GB UK EORI number. If you provide it, you will be able to cross the border, and you have the easement to make the supplementary declaration within the first 6 months. Having said that, this might have a significant impact of the amount that will have to be paid if duties are applicable on the amount of the supplementary declaration with respect to the import duties after 6 months. So our advice is definitely to clearly monitor this to ensure that you are able to pay these amounts when they are due.
Okay, now go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of the larger UK companies have already suggested that they will do theirs monthly rather than face the awkwardness of a 6 month splurge against their deferment and how that will manifest itself.
Okay, what happens to a European company that sends a product to the UK to have just a couple operations performed on the product, and then the product is being shipped back to the European continent? Is this going to be submitted to different types of regulations and taxation, or how does that work? Because that's something that happens on both ways on a daily basis.
That will go along the lines of most of the third country movements anyway, where duty and VAT would be suspended under IPR, but obviously the trader who's working with it will have to get IPR authorization.
So IPR
IPR is import processing relief.
This means that the duties, if they are applicable, will not be paid upon import, but you will be able to profit of this by re-exporting them and not being in the position to pay any import duties in the UK. So inward processing relief.
Yeah, it's for instance, if you've got an engine or machinery that's coming back for service and repair, which may require some parts to be changed, I think you can establish with customs the period of time that you're allowed to do it before you re-export it. The main thing is you re-export it, confirming that it came in under IPR, so it goes out, and then everything balances, and if by the same return case in the European country it's come from, then they should be able to claim it as return goods relief anyway.
Okay. Well,
it's crucial that you have a customs broker. In that case, they can prove the import versus the re-export, because if you cannot prove it within the time frame, the customs authorities will come back and still ask you to pay the import duties, and this is something that you do not want.
Correct.
Right. So I understand this is still early, and Richard mentioned we'll have more information in about a week. But how much do we know right now, and how much do we still have yet to find out about how things are going to be affected come January 1st? And are we certain that come January 1st we will be going through Brexit? How much uncertainty are we still facing, and how much do we know for a fact?
We know for sure that in the deal that the UK made with the EU, that the 30th of June was the deadline to ask for an additional postponement of 1 or 2 years of the transition period length. The UK government has clearly stated that they didn't want it in the beginning of June. We passed that deadline, and according to the deal that they made, they cannot postpone it anymore. as always, and this remains Brexit, it is unpredictable.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
So, as far as we know, the Brexit is happening, but there's still a lot of technicalities that have yet to be negotiated between the European continent and the UK.
Yeah, as it stands at the moment, our read from government is that imports will have the appropriate easements if they're non-control goods. The detail of how that happens has its own complexities, obviously, because of you're moving things on, and there's a date problem, and they've announced just in the last few days that 6 months will be a rolling 6 months. So technically, under that wording, it runs to December. Clarity on exactly how that works, we're hoping to find out on the 13th of July. Exports, there's been little to say that there'll be any other changes other than it will export from the UK under CT with community transit, or we'll be quoting a pre-lodged entry with an MRN from the country it's destined for the other side of the channel.
Okay, now since we're speaking to supply chain managers, really probably the two main things they need to know is how much extra time will it take to do business between the two sides, and how much extra cost will there be involved? When do we know anything, or if not, when do we find out that information?
This is something that you as responsible of your own business can already assess. There's a lot of information out there. You can have support of ALS Customs services, of course, to do the whole assessment of your different flows going to the UK, going to Northern Ireland, inward processing, outward processing. All of this can already be prepared. The only open question at this moment, will there be a free trade agreement where we will be looking at zero-rated import duties or reduced import duties? But the preparations with respect to customs formalities, the required master data, transactional data, is already an exercise that you can be preparing for and actually should already be preparing for.
Now, how likely is it that we reach a free trade agreement? Obviously, this is not of, you have no say in that, but how likely of a scenario is it?
I think the differences at this specific moment between the EU and the UK are still big, but we've always been working very closely, and I am convinced that it is still possible, yet it's going to be a serious challenge to be able to have this in place before the 1st of October, as everything still has to be ratified.
Now, free trade agreement does not necessarily mean paperwork-free trade agreement, does it?
No.
This is one of the biggest misconceptions. Free trade agreements. The EU has multiple free trade agreements, and customs formalities remain applicable. Customs inspections will remain applicable, and you have to prepare for this and also assess what the impact is on the financial side with respect to these activities due to additional transit time, due to additional costs related to these inspections.
One thing we haven't mentioned, Fabrice, in your presentation, you spoke about a control tower. I'm thinking that's something that would be of great interest to supply chain managers in order to track things and have maybe one single source of information. Could you tell us a little bit more about what the control tower does, how that can help?
Perhaps you can go directly to the
Yes, I can go.
last slide of the presentation, but we can talk about it a little bit.
Right now we're talking about all the concerns of a supply chain manager, and I would assume that would be an element that would ease the concerns of the supply chain manager.
The aim is control tower is to help importer or exporter to maximize the way to clear the goods in France or in Euro and within UK. The idea is to give to the company a single point of contact and to allow him to give data for exportation that will be reused within our customs control tower on the other side of the channel. So the added value is that you have only a single point of contact and you can give only one data, and we will take care of the exportation and of the importation. As it is IT system support, means that we cannot make it with paper. We need some files or IDI to send the data and to make the customs clearance in France or in Belgium, Netherlands, or Germany, and also to use the data in UK or to make the export clearance in UK and then the custom import in France. This is a tool that we have developed and that then we can use all over the ALS network.
Is this something a shipper can just log on in the morning and just check all the data? Is just a quick access source like that?
Something that we have to develop with each exporter or importer because each flow is specific. And before, we would like to talk about the checklist that we have developed to be sure that the data are correct and can be used by us. Because some data are compulsory, like export and import to UK, such as any third country, but for some companies we make only European sales. They are not used to export and export with third country. And as Soraya told before, this is now a third country. UK is becoming a third country. So, for instance, if you only make European sales, you will use with the codification HS code 8 digits. Now you will need 10 digits. And you will have to define the origin of the goods. But you must not make the confusion because between the place you buy the goods, which can be, for instance, Germany, and the origin of the goods, which can be China. And it will depend on the FTR, which will be signed with UK or not, but it will have really a great impact because if you send the product with an origin Germany to UK, and if the product has an origin China, it's a false declaration. So there are points that exporters, importers have now to work on, and perhaps they are not ready to that. It remains 6 months to make it, and it's important to work on it now.
So when it comes specifically to a customs control tower, we can ensure smooth customs clearance if we have the data from the exporter and we have all the data in place for the importer. The master data being who is the importer, are we empowered to do it? We can do the customs clearance based on one data set, smooth, easy, and efficiently, avoiding any additional bottlenecks at any borders.
And so will the shipper have access to that, or is that your own internal tool? How does the shipper follow all the information?
This tool does have a monitoring application where you can clearly see the status of the goods, where they are, if there's a customs inspection, if there's any additional information required, or how many duties and taxes are applicable and paid upon import to the UK customs or to the EU customs authorities.
Right, because I'm assuming, the shippers on the European side, on the UK side, will obviously be ready to do anything and they will be willing to do what it takes, but it's going to be frustrating if it's hard to follow what's needed, what's still due in terms of paperwork, and if you have a single access point to see where your merchandise is at, what's holding it back, what you need to do next to clear customs, that would be extremely helpful to anyone. Is that something that this tool can provide? Is that maybe something that you need to be thinking about in the future in terms of offering that to your clients, or how does that work?
This has full transparency. This has full transparency with respect to track and trace. Fabrice?
Yes, what I want to say is the Customs Control Tower is a tool, informatic tool, but the concept behind is linked to declarants on both sides of the channel, and also consultants who will help the exporter or importer find what we need. And we have an example with some customers that we have worked with last year, and we have defined what we need for exportation, and also we have had on a file, an EDA file, what will be needed by UK side, so that we have made a single file that can be used in France and also in UK. The problem is that the companies must be able to give this information and to work ahead to define the origin, the HS code, and the value of the goods, which can be also in customs different that they use today. I won't go deep into the detail, but the customs value is not, it is not compulsory that it is the same as the customs on the invoice. For instance, if you send 3 goods, samples, you will sell €0 or pound, but the value is important for the customs. So these are some things that we have to work with the customer ahead to be able to have the data when we will need it. Perhaps Soraya, you could put on the screen the checklist.
Correct. So specifically for this, we from ALS, we have prepared and given this to our customers. This is the basic Brexit checklist that we have designed. And you can see clearly there's a difference between master data and transactional data for each individual shipment that is crossing the border. When it comes to master data, you need to have an AORI number. This can be on both sides. This could be that you have a French AORI number and that you are selling DDP, that you will also have to apply for a GB, a UK AORI number. You need to have a VAT number. For sure, everybody has one. But what in case you are selling DDP, you will also need to have an AORI VAT number. So
the UK side.
VAT registration in case of a DDP setup. You might want to be looking at customs authorizations unless you are using a customs broker that has specific authorizations that you need to do the imports or exports. If you are looking at a customs representative, you need to have an empowerment in place with that customs representative. If you are also looking for VAT representation on the EU side or in the UK, you will need to have that empowerment in place with the customs broker or another service provider for this specific representation. Now, when we look at the transactional shipment data, this is the data that you need for each individual shipment that is crossing the border. And it will for sure be impacted based on the Incoterm. As Fabrice just mentioned, there's a difference between the invoice value and the customs value and the base for import VAT. So depending on the Incoterm, they will be able to identify what the exact customs value is, but also the import base for VAT. All of this needs to be based on the different customs codes. These are the tariff classification codes that the EU uses and the UK will also use. Each individual code has a different import duty which can be 0 or which can be even 80% in cases of anti-dumping duties, for example. Origin of goods, regardless of a free trade agreement or not, you have to determine what the origin of each individual SKU, each individual product is when you ship it over to another country outside of the EU. In this case, as of the 1st of January, also to the UK. Supporting all of this data, which can be fed via EDI to your customs broker, for example, ALS, you will also need to have an invoice, a physical invoice, and also a packing list. And at minimum, this invoice has to clearly state what the value is, the Incoterms that I use, the quantity, and also the weight of all the goods.
Okay, so if I'm a let's say EU company, and maybe a large company will have the resources to hire the right people to handle that. If I'm maybe a smaller business, I'm really not very knowledgeable with all the Incoterms and the formalities, and it's not something I want to spend time or resources handling. What's the best way to proceed? Is it to find a customs agent on the UK side? What would be the best course of action? I mean, you know, if you go DDP, you obviously have to be knowledgeable with what you're doing because you're responsible for everything all the way to the point of delivery. So what would a smaller company, what would you suggest a smaller company does in order to do that correctly, efficiently, quickly, without having too much of a headache or having to hire a couple of specialists?
So the first point of attack would definitely be assess all different flows that you currently have with the UK. Identify what the sales terms are, what are the delivery terms, are you selling at this moment collect or delivered, and how will it be as of the 1st of January? Because this will impact it. So certain negotiations might be necessary with your suppliers or with your customers. Having assessed all these different flows will lead to the fact if you need to have a customs representative or not. For the customs operational side, this is an aspect that you also already have to be preparing, but they will definitely require additional information before they can give any service. So they will need to know what specific business you are doing, what the terms are, what the commodity codes are. So these assessments have to be done upfront to give that correct information to the customs broker.
Yeah.
Okay, we have just a couple of minutes. Final words of wisdom and advice.
In order to complete Richard's what Richard mentioned with regard to SMEs, small medium-sized enterprises, from our experiences, since you're fully busy with Brexit and impact on Brexit on large enterprises and small enterprises, yes, it's correct, and they need to appoint a customs agent as a first instance, but the level of knowledge in a small, medium-sized enterprises is not comparable with level of knowledge within a bigger companies. I mean, next to the Incoterms, I mean, the contract, I mean, the terms of contracts and terms of sales that they are using, and they are not aware about the impact of use of Incoterms. They are not aware about the impact of rules of origin. They are not impact of the correct HS code. I mean, using the correct harmonized system in order to have a correct HS code. All these topics may affect their cash flow, definitely. Because if they do not use a correct Incoterms, they would be responsible for import duties and taxes. If they do not use a correct HS codes, they may actually pay more import duties, or they may get fined afterwards from customs authorities. If they do not use the rules of origin correctly, they cannot use of any FTA afterwards, or I mean, they cannot enjoy of the easements of if the FTA, if there is in place. So our suggestion for the small medium enterprises next to having an expert or having a good communication with the customs expert is to just to see that they have enough knowledge in-house, maybe just going for a short or 1 day or 2 day customs training in order to be more involved in the customs topics and getting more familiar with customs topics. This is actually at least my actually advice to small, medium-sized enterprises.
Not to mention one issue that some smaller businesses have is you don't always know where everything comes from on your product. You're selling a product from, let's say, France to the UK, but some of the components you can't be entirely sure, like how much comes from the EU, how much comes from outside of the EU, and that might also be a problem when it comes to clearing customs.
Yeah, I think on that, there's still something that you can look to your local authorities for, because there is a percentage of compartment. So parts may only form from other countries 10%. So they will take the 90% as the country of origin. So it depends what the local customs agree with you in the country that you're shipping from.
And hopefully they can give good advice on that, because I know that has been an issue for some people that I've talked to before. That I'm not sure how to prove
people have specific questions. Sorry.
Anyway, so
I think if people have specific questions and they use the email address, then obviously we can supply the answers.
Okay, sounds good. So we have no more time, but we have 6 months left. What last few words? What do we need to watch out for in the next 6 months, and what can possibly happen in the next 6 months?
Be prepared for the worst case.
Worst case scenario.
The UK authorities meet a deadline.
Okay. And
I will also add, it does not concern supply chain manager. We can hear us now, but we will have a lack of declarants. We need resources because we'll have a lot of work to do, and it is a chance in this crisis period for forwarding agents. But we need also people. We need to train people now to get them prepared at the end of the year.
Yes.
And there are not that much trainings existing now.
We'll need to train early next year. All right. Well, thank you. We're unfortunately out of time. Thank you all for coming and sharing all your knowledge. I'm sure it'll be very useful for a lot of shippers. Before we finish, I'd like to remind our viewers that you get to vote for the Startup of the Year. The video, if you haven't watched it, is available in the comment section, as well as the voting, the link to vote for the Startup of the Year. So thanks, thank you all for coming here today and sharing your knowledge. I think we'll be hearing from you early next year. We might have to do this again in 6 months.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Music is